Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Marina Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Lucini Donzo. Lucini is the author of The Power of Determination, Train Your Mind to Live Your Calling. And Lucini and I are going to be talking today on the topic, training your mind to live your purpose. How many of you know that you've got to train your mind? It's like a muscle, right? So we're going to be talking, of course, about determination and resilience and, what the Army taught Lucini. So stick around. This should be an interesting conversation. Welcome, Lucini.
Hey, how you doing, Miss Mina? How's everything?
Doing great, thank you. All right. So let me give you guys a little bit more information on Lucini. Lucini grew up in Monrovia, Liberia, and came to America as a refugee 17 years ago. On October 20th, 2016, his life changed forever, where he ended up having a grand mal seizure and in a coma. He quickly realized that tomorrow is not promised, and as long as you have life, you should chase after your dreams and things that matter. He later graduated from Virginia State University as a computer science major and commissioned in the U.S. Army in 2018. Today, Lucini is an author, speaker, credit consultant, and a United States Army officer who says he loves empowering people while helping them to build their credit. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Lucini, you're pretty young. So, you had quite a journey. You started off as a refugee from Liberia, and now our listeners can actually understand what that is like because they're seeing the millions of refugees, fleeing Ukraine for the same thing, war, bombing, you know what I mean? And we all know, in fact, I'm having chills now just thinking about it. We all know that the life of those refugees are not going to be easy. Right now, they don't know where they're going to be living, how they're going to eat. So yeah, your journey is an interesting one to talk about in this climate. So give us, your story, what happened, you can talk about being a refugee and a coma that changed your life.
So originally I grew up in Liberia. At the age of 6, there was in 1990, Liberia had a war. They had a civil war. So I was born in 92. So I was born during the height of the Civil War. And I remember at the age of 4 or 5 years old that we will have rebels come in the house, and my mother at the time, she will hide me on the ceiling from the rebels because they will be looking for young men. And we all know a lot of African Civil War. If you study the African culture, they look for young men to take advantage of, to fight the war, because children are the easiest individuals to actually take advantage of. So my mom will always hide me, constantly hide me up in the ceiling, just to make sure that they don't find out that she has a male child. It got crazy to where at the age of 6, she actually gave me to my grandmother to go live in a village in a different country, Guinea. So I lived in Guinea for about 2 years, and I was there. It was a lot of struggle there because we all used to eat in the same bowl. We all used to play together. It was more family, but it was a lot of struggle because at the time I didn't know who my father was. At the time I didn't have my mother. I was just living with my grandmother and all my cousins, and we was fighting to eat food. So it was one of those things that when I look back, at the position that I'm in right now, I am so humble because especially I can resonate with what some of the individuals in Ukraine are going through, because that is something that I wouldn't wish on anyone, what I went through as far as growing up as in a refugee and a civil war.
Wow, my goodness.
But
yeah, that
yes.
is hard on all levels. Yeah, keep going. Mm-hmm.
So once I left Guinea, I went to Ivory Coast. I actually, my dad, I lived with my father in Ivory Coast.
So you found him.
Ivory Coast had yes, I found, well, he ended up finding me.
Finding you, okay.
So So when I actually lived in Ivory Coast ended up having a war.
Oh,
So
my goodness.
there was a civil war in Ivory Coast where everyone that was not Liberian, they were trying to kick them out the country, or if you don't want to get kicked out the country, you need this thing called a laissez-passer, which is kind of like in America a green card or something to say that hey, you're in
Mm,
America, you can be able to
right,
work.
right.
So at the time when my family, my mother uh, and my father, we went to get the laissez-passer, which they said, hey, we have a program. It was a resettlement program that America was doing to take the refugee in Ivory Coast to bring him to the States. And that's how
Oh,
we ended up getting the laissez-passer. And then once we got the laissez-passer, my mom was like, hey, she asked my dad, like, hey, we have the opportunity to go to America. He was like, yeah, of course. If my kids have the opportunity to go to America, I don't have an issue with that. So she ended up doing the paperwork. And then a year later or 9 months later, we ended up coming here where we came here as a refugee. Initially, we was on welfare. We was collecting checks, food stamps and all that. But eventually my mother got off and yeah, that's pretty much it.
oh, that's such a beautiful story. I came from Guyana. We weren't that poor, but it's still a third world country. And, I had the opportunity as well to go to Canada at first. That's what's got me out of my poverty. And then I ended up coming to United States. So yeah, wow. I have a charity that's called Food for the Poor. And one of the things that the charity that, they're showing you, the kids in Africa that, eating from one bowl of rice, and oh my God, it breaks my heart. So you have been there, and that's a beautiful thing to show, people that are listening, people that are maybe in that particular position right now, because this podcast is worldwide, is that you don't always stay there. Whether it's coming to a new country or whether it's finding opportunities, yeah, you don't stay in the wilderness all the time. You get out of it and find your promised land. And like the Americas were my promised land. So that's beautiful. So you went through all that, and then you ended up with a grand mal seizure. How did that happen?
So so 2000 and so 2000 so after I came here, I moved around a little bit, and then I went to Philadelphia. I was living with my uncle in Philadelphia, where I graduated high school. After I graduated high school in Philadelphia, I actually came back to stay with my mother. Now, while I was working in college, I was working a lot. So I was doing about maybe 18 hours. I had school, I had RTC, I was in Army Reserve. I was just doing so much. And one of the things that the doctor told me at the time was that was one of the causes of the seizure. But I ended up having a seizure because I wasn't getting an adequate amount of sleep, and I was just I was taking a lot of protein shakes. I was working out. I wasn't eating a lot of nutrients, and I wasn't getting adequate amount of sleep, and I was also overworking myself. So my brain went into a shock. So when my brain went into a shock, I ended up having a coma. I have ended up having a seizure initially where I broke my left shoulder while I was sleeping.
Mm,
Now, when I woke up, I didn't know that I had a seizure. All I knew was I couldn't feel my shoulder.
mm,
So I told my two best friends at the time, I said, hey, I don't feel well. I think there's something going on with me. Could you please take me to the hospital?
mm,
So about 30 to 45 minutes later, they took me to the hospital. In about 30 minutes to an hour, I believe, that's when I can remember, I immediately had a grand mal seizure where I dislocated my right shoulder. And the
mm,
seizure was so bad that I ended up in a coma for about 6 to 8 hours. And
mm.
so that's how I ended up having a seizure to where I almost lost my life. And the only reason the doctor told me that I didn't lose my life was so they had to strap my head and my mouth down because my entire body was shaking. And if
Shaking.
they wouldn't have strapped that down, I would have broken my neck because I had broken the two major
Wow.
muscles in my
Wow.
body. So
And you're
yeah,
pretty young now. How old were you then?
I was 24 years old.
Oof. Wow. Okay. So somebody told you about hard work. You learned it. So you came here and you worked. It's a beautiful thing. It's one of the things that immigrants do. You know, we're not lazy. You're there trying to make it in this world and overwork yourself. All right. But again, all our experiences in life are guiding us through something. And what Dot you said in your bio, what you realized after this happened to you is that tomorrow is not promised and you should chase your dreams. So why did you decide to go in the army, first of all? And then tell us about, why you decided that that you wanted, or what did you want to chase as your dreams?
So one of the main reasons I decided to join the military was because I wanted to challenge myself as an individual. Prior to joining the military, I realized that I've only been living life. I wasn't challenging myself while I was living my life. And one of the things I realized that a lot of successful people, although they have trials and tribulation, but they go through things that challenge them. And I think that one of the main reasons why I overcame the seizure and why I was so determined, and one of the main reasons why I'm here is because the military. I joined the military because I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, Lucini, you're mentally, you're not where we want you to be. And at that point of time, the only thing that I could think of that could get me mentally to where I wanted to be was the military. So it was an easy choice where I just enlisted in the military because I wanted to develop my character to become better. So that's one of the main reasons why I joined the military. Now, as far as everything while I'm in the military, I think the military has been a blessing to me because it has helped me to be very resilient in everything that I wanted to do. So after I had this seizure, the doctors told me that I should give up on all my dreams because they told me that I was going to stay on welfare. I was not going to be able to get a normal job. And for me, that never resonated with me because I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, God, I have life. I am breathing. And I asked the person that's in charge of my physical therapist, I'm sorry. I asked him, I was like, hey, can I recover? Can my shoulders recover? Can I, he's like, yes, you can. In about 9 to 10 months, you can be fully recovered and be active again. So I looked at the doctor and I said, well, why are you telling me this thing when I can recover in less than a year? So I challenged what the doctor told me. And I told them like, hey, I don't want to stay on the seizure medication. I have a dream. And at the time, my dream was just to make it out of the hospital, right? At the time, my dream
That is
was
sad as
literally,
well. Yes.
it was just to make it out of the hospital because I was in the hospital for 2 weeks.
Mhm.
So another blessing was the fact that I was in the military. They paid for everything because the bill was over 350,000. If I
Ooh,
wasn't in the military and I didn't
right.
have good insurance, I
That's
wouldn't
right.
have had
Right.
to do so. So
Mhm.
I challenged the doctor and I said, hey, listen, my physical therapist said I can overcome this. And the fact that I'm already resilient, I've been through so much things, so much mental training with the military. And I told him, I was like, what do I need to do to get out of this situation? What do I need to do to get out of this predicament? Because at the end of the day, I didn't come in America to stay and collect disability check. And
Yeah,
he looked at
right.
me,
I
he
like
looked
that
at me.
statement. Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
He looked
Mhm.
at me and he laughed and he laughed. He said, well, start taking the seizure medication slowly, slowly. And eventually when you don't need it no more, where you are 3 to 6 months completely off the seizure medication, I'm going to clear you. I said, it's done. And I went ahead and did that. And after I did that, I got my clearing papers. I went to my military boss and said, hey, I want to commission. I'm clear from the doctor. What do you need to do? And he went
Beautiful.
ahead and he laughed. He did the same thing. And he ended up, now I'm here. But I was, my goal was just to get out of the hospital.
Mhm.
That was my goal. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, you had a couple of goals though. Your first goal was that you recognized that you wanted to train your mind and you wanted to build character, and that's why you went into the Army. And I'm understanding why the doctor was thinking that you would always be on disability, because normally the cause of the seizure is something mental, and maybe he didn't think that that you're always going to have seizures. In fact, I was just watching a movie last night regarding Ben Carson, and one of the most they highlighted all his top surgeries, and one of his top surgeries was a girl that was getting seizures all the time, and she was shaking violently, just like you're talking about, right? Shaking violently, and he actually took out half of her brain, because he's saying that, I know, right? Seeing your face, right? Well, hers was so bad that he's saying that she would continue to have seizures unless he took out half of her brain, and I guess the brain was going to build back, or whatever it was, but it worked, and that was part of whatever. So I can get where where the doctor was going with that, but we know, because I'm going to talk to you as somebody that's coaching, someone that's been through things, someone that is in the military, that everything that you do or want starts with the determination to do it. And because you had the determination not to take it easy, not to come and be on welfare, not to become, disabled, whatever, at 24, then you worked towards what you wanted. And whenever you have a North Star and you work towards it, I would almost say 100% of the time you get it. It's rarely that you don't. So yeah, so now you're in the Army, and you're saying that it taught you the power of determination. So how did that happen?
So the power of determination came from a lot of the trials that I experienced in the Army. One of the things initially when I joined the military as an officer, I wanted to establish myself as an entrepreneur. But a lot of the times when you work, depending on the organization you work for, in my case, the military, a lot of people are not very fond of you making money outside of your normal job. And there was a lot of trials and tribulation where a lot of people discouraged me. They was saying that, hey, you have nothing to offer the world. Nobody wants to listen to you. You're just a lieutenant. Nobody cares.
Terrible thing to say.
Right, it is. And nobody cares. Just do your job. Eventually, the world is going to care as you rise up rank. But then I realized all these individuals that I know that they were still having an impact, that were not in the military, but they had careers, but they were having an impact and they were doing their thing. So I said to myself, well, Lucini, with anything in his life, how determined are you? How bad do you want to actually establish yourself? How bad do you want to tell the world your story? How bad do you want to write a book? How bad do you want to set yourself up for success outside of the military? And that's where the determination came from, because I kept on talking myself. I kept on telling myself affirmation. I kept on turning down all the haters and naysayers that were saying I'm too young, I don't have any credibility. And one of the things I realized, how can you, if you don't have credibility, the best way to have credibility is to get credibility. So it's to start. Yeah. And I made a decision. I wanted to start. So I started. So I was just focused. I was determined to just succeed in that area outside of the military. That was my main focus.
So while you were in the military, you wanted to have a job outside the military. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
So while I was in the military, I've always wanted to have, because I've always had multiple jobs, even while I was in college. So I was never used to having one source of income, but it was a little different, having senior leaders constantly discouraging you, senior leaders telling you that you cannot do this because you don't have the credibility, because in the military, your rank is low. But as me and in the world, there are people that don't even have credibility and then still voice their opinion on certain things.
Yeah.
So
a lot of them.
Exactly. And I said, well, the only credibility I have is my experience. The only credibility that I have is what I've been through. And that's the best way to start, because as you the lessons that you have learned as an individual, you put that in a book and you teach people the lesson that you're learning. You tell your story. There's nothing wrong with that. So that's how I ended up staying on course, just being determined and going after my dreams.
So what is it that you wanted to go after? Is that your credit consulting business, or that was something else back then?
So one of my ultimate dreams is to become the #1 speaker on the planet, right? But
All right.
the credit came very easy to me. I wanted to chase my dream of entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship was something that I wanted to chase. And at the time, I didn't have a product. And one of the best way, because I actually enrolled in Eric Thomas' program, and one of the things that we got, he was saying the best way to get yourself out there is just to write a book. The easiest way to establish credibility is to write a book about your story. Let the world know who you are. So that was something that I did. When the world knew who Lucini Donzo was, I now started researching things that came very easy to me. And the credit came to me very easy because I actually took my credit from about 585 to 840 in 18 months.
Wow.
So as I realized,
great accomplishment.
This is a skill, right? I was amazed. And I said to myself, well, I have an experience. I have a skill set. Can I do it for other people? So then I started doing it slowly. I started doing it for free. And then as I did it to over 10, 15, 20 people, then I started charging. And then eventually I went ahead and got certified. And then eventually I did the consulting thing for a year and a half. And then I later on bought my company. So yes.
Oh, that's awesome. That is great. So I love that determination. I love that, because, a lot of times, especially when you're of our color, people, don't think that you have anything to say. Somebody that's in the army that was maybe white might have a different experience, but people telling you that you have nothing to say and discouraging you, I'm pretty sure 50% of that came from the fact that you're Black. So it's pretty good that you persevered, you had determination, you know what you wanted, and you went after it. And that's actually great because I don't even know anybody that has an 840 credit score. I'm a realtor, and I see when somebody has a 750 credit score, I look at them like they're a god. 840, that's absolutely amazing. And like you said, if you brought it from like 585 to that in 18 months, that's amazing. You obviously have something that you need to teach. And, I hope that anyone that's listening would run over to your page and learn that, because, even my pastor was saying the other day that having a good credit score, it's one of the best things that a Black person can do for themselves, because in order for you to elevate yourself out of poverty, in order for you to elevate yourself where you get good interest on purchasing a car or a business loan or whatever, the credit score is the main thing. And a lot of people in our community have poor or fair credit score. They never have great, you know what I mean? So that is, it is a good service. And, when the minister is teaching it from the pulpit, that it's something that we need to look into. So let's get to our main focus of our conversation today, and the subtitle of your book, Training Your Mind. And I'm almost sure that, I read a couple of Navy SEALs book, and I understand the Army's way of training the mind. And in fact, the other day I woke up and I've never been in, obviously, I shouldn't say obviously because I'm female, but I've never been anywhere near the Army, or have never had an interest in going it. But I like the fact that they say that you're a soldier and you gotta, work the mission. And I woke up the other day and I put in my journal that I'm a soldier and I'm good. and I'm going to
All right.
complete my mission. You know what I mean? Just an analogy. So yeah, how are you teaching your clients or people in your book to train your mind or their mind?
So one of the things that I talk in my book is I talk about you have to understand why you're doing something, right? I think for most people, the first thing I would say, in my opinion, in order for you to train your mind, you have to know, why am I doing this?
So, Lucini, one of the subtitles of your book is Train Your Mind to Live Your Calling. So I'm almost sure that training your mind is, one of the skills that you learned by being a military officer, because I've read several different books from Navy SEALs, and I am so impressed with the training that's in the military. In fact, I got up the other day and I said to myself that I am a soldier, that I am going to complete my mission. So, so tell us about training your mind to achieve your purpose.
So for me, training, one of the things that I realized when it comes to being in the military or just training your mind, and one of the reasons why I even titled my book, Train Your Mind to Live Your Calling, is one of the chapters in my book, I talk about your why, right? And I think having a why is an important statement. Everything we do in the military, there's a why. When we have missions that we have to execute, we have things that we have to do, you have to have a why. So I think, take it back to when I had a seizure when I was in that hospital, where the doctor told me, hey, young man, you have to stay on disability, you have to stay on welfare and collect checks. My why was, I didn't come in this country to do that. I am an immigrant in this country. America is a country of opportunity. America is a country that you can do anything that you want. So that really helped me to get to where I wanted to go. So I used that as fuel. And I said to myself, well, I'm not going to just sit here in this hospital. I'm not going to pity myself. I'm not going to just not go after my dreams and my goals. So my why was initially to get out. Now, when we talk about training your mind, you have to use your trials and tribulations and some of the things that you actually have been through in this life. So I use me growing up as a refugee, me growing up with an uncle that was mentally, physically abusive towards me. And I said, I have so much more. So that was one of the things, that was the first thing that I said to myself, what is your why? Because when I understood my why, that propelled me to get out of the hospital. Now, after that, you have to ask yourself, what are you doing it for? Right? Who are you doing all the things that you're doing? And in one of the chapters in my book, the title, I believe, is you have to have is like, who are the people that you're doing it for, right? Because for me, I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest of 6 kids. So I looked at myself and I said to myself, hey, how can I expect my brothers, my sisters, how are they going to react in this situation if they ever go through trials and tribulations? But if I can overcome this, I can be able to tell them that, hey, look, listen, it's fine that you've been through this because I've been through something similar. So who are you doing it for? Who are the people that you're doing it for? Because if you're just doing things for yourself, I'm sorry to say this, but eventually you're going to quit. Eventually you're going to stop. So that was something that kept me. And even in the military, as we're doing missions because we're trying to fight this country war. We're trying to save the Americans. And we're doing it for the American people. We're not doing it for just ourselves. We're doing it because of our kids, our mothers, our fathers, and all these people that we're doing it for. So that was something that really, that helped me, knowing your why and knowing who you're doing it for. And lastly, what are you trying to leave? Because if what you're trying to leave is bigger than you, is the difference you're trying to leave is going to leave impact with generations to come, then you're not going to quit because you've had a grand mal seizure. You're not going to quit because somebody told you that you can't do certain things. So those are the three things that really helped me. And as I was continuing during that time, and even now, as I continue on my journey, it always brings up, what is my why? Who am I doing it for? And what is the legacy that I am trying to leave on this earth?
That's good. It's pretty good. That matches my goals and my missions. As a mom, yeah, I'm doing it for a generation increase. So I understand exactly what you're saying. So that's awesome. But I also know that the Army trains your mind. So let's touch on that for a little bit before we talk about your book. How exactly does the Army train your mind? Because from the minute you go in there, they're training you and they're training your mind.
So the military train our mind. When you first get into the military, you go through this thing called reception, right? And immediately when you get in reception, they tell you drop your bags, and you have drill sergeants yelling at you, telling you what to do, trying to break you, saying, yep, hey, listen, put your bag, this is what you're gonna do. And they immediately, when you get there, they strip out all the civilian in you. They now tell you, hey, you are no longer a civilian. You are United States, even though they haven't, but they from the day one, day zero, they say, hey, you are a soldier now. You're going to be told what to do. So what they do is they once you have acknowledged that, some people don't, some people do, but once you have acknowledged that, now they give you a call and say, hey, call your parents, let them know you're safe, you're at basic training. After that call, it's over. You're telling when to wake up. You're being told when to wake up, when to go to bed, when to have personal hygiene, and all those things. And the reason why the military does that is to condition you, because as a soldier, you're going to be told to execute missions from higher. So they start from zero, and throughout your entire time in basic training, the first thing that the military teaches you, you have an assigned weapon. And when you have an assigned weapon, what that does is that teaches you how to take care of something that you're going to use to eventually kill someone. So you're going to learn everything about that assigned weapon, because at the end of the day, let's say if you're deployed and your weapon's jammed, the military teaches you this thing called sports, which is to fix the malfunction, where you can actually be able to execute that and be able to shoot your weapon. So in that case, that nothing happened to you. So there's different things. After that, you wear heavy vest. After that, you learn how to ruck, which is walk miles. They train your legs, they train your mental toughness, because they want you to be resilient. They want you to be mentally. So when you're tired, you stay in the field for a couple of days where you're eating this thing called meal ready to eat, MREs, where you're not eating burgers or you're not eating food. So you're going through all these things in the span of 8 to 9 weeks, where you're waking up at 4 a.m, you're sleep deprived, and you haven't seen your family. You don't talk to your family maybe on a Sunday or so, but you're constantly being challenged. You're constantly being waking up in the morning. You're constantly going to bed exactly at 9. You have to make up your bed. You have to make sure your bed is detailed. You have to make sure your laundries are done. You have to make sure your lockers are clean. Those small things, they're training you as a soldier. So you can take those lessons and you can apply in your personal life or whatever it is that you want to do.
Love it. I absolutely love it. So like I said, I read about the Navy SEALs, and the Navy SEALs are, one of the tougher ones, but everyone goes through that, huh? Whether you're a Navy SEAL or not, you go through the same thing.
No, Navy SEALs are way tougher than Navy SEAL training is. Buzzes, yeah.
Well, what you just said to me sounds just as bad.
Yeah, from buzzes, it's
and that's
worse.
That's why I love it, because you have a son and you put him through that. Oh my gosh. You're proud of him. Especially if he graduates. I know they kick out a lot of people because they can't handle it, but if you can get through and graduate, that is absolutely amazing. So that is great. So listen, you're a wonderful young man, and I love your story. I love what you've put yourself through, and I love where you're at right now in your life. And I'm glad that you wrote a book so that you can tell your story, because a lot of people needs encouragement. That is basically what books are there for. You tell your story, and it's a story that will resonate with somebody that is in that place right now, and they need a little bit of hope. My book, my subtitle of my book is Offering Hope and Encouragement, because I read a book that's called Out of the Snares. And it's the same thing, out of the snares of something. It can be anything, it can be poverty, it can be drug addiction, it could be, whatever, but you're out of the snares, and then you're offering hope and encouragement to someone that's in that snares right now. You know what I mean? So that's amazing. So now tell us about your book. I think you've already told us why you wrote it. Is there something else that you want to tell our listeners about the book or why they should get it?
So I think the main reason why you guys should get the book is mainly because the book tells a story of what I went through as far as coming here as a refugee, going through uncle that was mentally, physically abusive, after going through all that, and then joining the army, having a seizure while in the army, and still ended up enrolling myself in a speaker program, challenged myself as a speaker, where now, and this is all before I even started credit. So initially, the reason why you should get the book, it highlight my story of all the things that I went through, all the trials and tribulation, just to stay on course, to stay determined. Because at the end of the day, I think one of the most important things in life is for you to literally train your mind to whatever it is that you're doing. But for me, obviously, I want to train my mind to live my calling, because I believe that every single one of us in this life have a purpose. We all have a calling. And my calling is to inspire millions of people around the world through speaking. And that's one of the reasons why you should get the book, to just read my story and see what I did, how I overcame it, and how you can too. And if I can do it with a seizure, and where people are in the military, uncles, families, people are telling me that I don't have any credibility.
And a refugee, don't forget that. Yes.
Exactly. And if I can do that, I'm pretty sure any one of you all can read it, because it's pretty. When I sit back and read my own book, sometimes, I'm not going to lie, I do cry, because there's a lot of things that I've been through to get to where I'm at.
Yeah, well, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love it. Well, I love sharing your story. I love the fact that we're highlighting it now. I love the fact that you're a young Black man, and you're doing a positive thing in this world, and you want to inspire. And I like the fact that you put millions on there, because that's a goal, that's a purpose. Yes, inspire millions of people. So well, thank you again for, in the beginning of our conversation, I was getting all goosebumps, because you started rough. You started rough, but I say it in my book as well, and I say it all the time. It's never where you start out, is where you end up. So I'm glad that you're on your way. You're obviously not at a mountaintop yet, but you're on your way. So it was a pleasure for me to talk to you today, and to share your story to the world. So thank you very much for coming on. All right, guys. What? Sorry.
No, I was just saying thank you too.
You're welcome. All right. So, all right, guys. Well, listen, thank you so much for tuning in to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I hope that you were inspired by Lucini's story, especially since it's relevant today, by the millions of refugees that you're seeing fleeing the war. And we know that their life is going to be difficult moving forward. So, and as Americans, you know that you can use, Lucini's story to light a fire under you, and saying that if he can do it, then you can do it. Just go after your dreams, go after your goals, have a determination. He said, what's your why? Who you're doing it for? What is your legacy? Those are things that should be important to everybody, because regardless if you have children or not, you want to leave a legacy. When you die, people should know that you've been on this earth. So that's basically, what, I believe that we should all do. And which is why I have this show, and I titled it Transform Your Mind, because if you transform your mind, you definitely can transform your life. All right, Lucini, any last words before we wrap it up?
Just there's power in your purpose. And once you know your purpose, everything will align in your life.
Love it. Nailed it. That's great. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, namaste.